For the cheapest FIFA points, coins and accounts around, go to ufifa.com and up until the 2nd of January, get 15% discount when you use the code TVM at checkout. Links in the description. Go check them out. What is going on, guys? TVM here. Welcome to another Marquee matchup predictions. Who made money or was well prepared for last week's Marquee matchups? I know I was. A lot of League 1 and League 2 players, which is what we were talking about stocking up on. They threw an extra Scottish one in there, I think. But in theory, if you planned for Rangers Celtic, you should have more or less had that covered as well. So as you can see, we've got three pretty big teams on the thumbnail. Let's get into the first matchup. And we're going to kick things off with probably the most unlikely of all of the matchups this weekend, and that is Reading against QPR. Essentially, it's hoops on hoops, right? Now, apparently, so I've been reading up, there is a massive hatred between the two clubs. I'm not sure why or the history behind it or whatever, but this is definitely an outside shot, so we could be seeing championship players required. I would stock up on a few from either club and obviously championship players as well. Up to you on the nationality thing. I'd probably stay clear of that and just make sure you've got some championship players in your side. Let's get into the next one. And sticking with the championship theme, I've gone with Sheffield Wednesday against Huddersfield. It is a narrow Yorkshire derby, but still both sides are doing particularly well in the championship as well. So I would imagine that this could be a very good shout from EA if they want to throw a bit of a curveball on some of the matchups this weekend. Two of them are sort of set in stone really, but then this one could just about creep in there. So again, championship players, maybe English players, but I just make sure that you've got plenty of championship players in your squad. I'm just throwing this out there just to cover all bases. Millwall against Charlton. It is somewhat of a South London derby. It's definitely worth a mention. I don't have images for it. I apologise. But again, I would probably get one or two players from either. In fact, I would just get one player from either club. Normally what they do in these situations is if they were to pick it, they would say one Millwall or Charlton player. That's what they've been doing recently. So just on that chance, I would probably just pick up one from either club just in case. And then a few League 1 players, and I'd leave it at that. If you don't have to use them this weekend and they don't come into action, you might need them for next week or the week after, so they're always going to be there. They're only going to be like 200 coins each anyway, so you're not going to be wasting too much, and it's a future investment. And for your token Australian derby this week, we have Adelaide United against Melbourne Victory. Every week we have a derby in Australia. Do I think this is going in? No. After this, I think they're all going to go in. The next four are, in my opinion, the ones that are going to be picked. But I just can't see them picking the Australian sides. I don't know what it is, but I mean, if you do want to prepare one from either side, probably full Australian. If I was EA, I would definitely do that as well. But I mean, you might want to diversify just in case, maybe pick up a couple of nationalities. It's not going to cost you a lot of money, and it will eventually come in handy for when they do a marquee matchups using one of several possibilities in the Australian League. And now that the possibilities are out the way, we can get into what I believe will feature this week in marquee matchups. Kicking things off with one of two FA Cup clashes, Preston North End against Arsenal. Why have I chosen two sides who have no geographical connection whatsoever? This is not a derby, a lot of you are saying. And yes, it's not. However, there is a link there, there's a connection. Both sides are the only two sides in the English leagues to have ever gone unbeaten. Preston North End did it a long time ago. In fact, you have to Google this because you can't ask anyone because they won't know because they weren't old enough. 1880 is when Preston did it. And obviously Arsenal did it in 2002-03. I think it was around that time. But still, definitely more than enough of a connection there. It's two different leagues as well. It's Premier League versus Championship. It's an interesting scenario, really. I mean, EA could do something really nice with this. They could say, hey, one Preston player, one Arsenal player, 5 from each league, make it a bit more complicated. So I would just get a couple of Arsenal players, I'd get a couple of Preston players, and I'd obviously stock up on your Championship, and I would stock up on your Premier League as well. Although most of you will probably have Premier League players in your club. Just going to quickly hop over to Spain before we go back to another FA Cup clash. We have Real Sociedad against Sevilla. This is a top 5 clash, a big game in Spain this weekend. There's not that many games on full stop. You know, they've still got their winter breaks around the world. I think it's only the Spanish League and the Italian League that kick back off this week. And of course the Premier League and every other English league are taking a break to do the FA Cup. So I don't think they're going to put like 4 FA Cup clashes in there. There's nothing in Italy at all. So we have 2 Spanish clashes, and seeing as how they're both top 5, I would recommend getting one from either club and then maybe picking up some foreign players for this one. Not Spanish, but you might want to just hold on to that thought because you might still need those Spanish players. But before I explain why, we're going to hop back over to Blighty and talk about Stoke against Wolves. And if there was ever a game that screamed English players at you, it's this one. You are going to need a full 11 of English players, one from Stoke, one from Wolves. Bang, tidy, done. Now remember when I told you to hang on to that thought about those Spanish players? Well, this is basically the thought. We have second against fourth, Barca against Villarreal. Massive game for both of these sides. A, because Villarreal are playing Barca and it's always going to be a big game. But Barca are trailing Real Madrid, and Real Madrid have a game in hand, so they need to try and sustain some sort of pressure by beating Villarreal. It's a big game in La Liga. This is probably my top build prediction. I would say that this is the one that I would say is definitely going to be in there, and I think you're going to need Spanish players. So again, I'd go with 2 from either side. Lately they've just been doing 1 from either side, but I would go with 2 players from either side, and I would make them Spanish as well. Stock up on La Liga players because you're going to need them for Sociedad, Sevilla and Barca, Villarreal. Even if they don't put one or the other in there, you're still going to have a full complement of players. Do you know what I mean? Go out and get the cheapest ones possible. You're probably going to need like 77 rated squads or higher, maybe 76, something along those lines. So don't be stingy. Try and get yourself the 80-81s for as cheap as possible. And there we have it, another week of marquee matchup predictions done. Takes quite a long time to research through all the leagues to make sure that everything is in order. If I've missed anything though, please let me know in the comment section down below, and just know that if I have missed something, it wasn't intentional, it's just a lot to go through. Okay, granted, to be fair, this week there wasn't actually a lot to go through, but still, if I have missed anything, I'd like you to let me know. Took me about 39 takes to do the whole thing as well, so a like would be very much appreciated. Subscribe to the channel if you're new around here, of course. Thank you very much for watching, and until the next time, goodbye.